Mia had always been someone who believed in the power of routine. For years, she had worked tirelessly at the small diner, nestled on the edge of town, serving regulars who had become more like family. The familiar faces, the clink of coffee cups, and the smell of fresh pancakes in the morning had all provided her with a sense of comfort. Yet deep down, Mia knew that something was missing. She had grown accustomed to the monotony of her life, but that didn't mean she was satisfied. One chilly evening, as she wiped down the counter after another busy day, the doorbell jingled, signaling the arrival of a new customer. Mia looked up and saw him immediately. Clint Eastwood, the iconic actor. She blinked twice, not sure if she was seeing things correctly. Clint Eastwood, the man known for his roles in westerns, action films, and his undeniable charm, was standing right there in her diner. He flashed a small, courteous smile as he made his way to a booth in the corner. Mia quickly composed herself, trying to act normal, though she couldn't shake off the excitement in her chest. She walked over to him, trying to mask her surprise with professionalism. "Hi, welcome to the Silver Spoon. What can I get for you today?" Clint glanced up from the menu with a twinkle in his eye. "I'll have a coffee, black, and a slice of pie. You wouldn't happen to have apple, would you?" Mia nodded, still processing the fact that one of the most famous actors in the world was sitting in front of her. "Coming right up," she said, hurrying off to prepare his order. As she served Clint his coffee and pie, she couldn't help but notice how down-to-earth he seemed. Despite his fame, he wasn't demanding or pretentious. There was something about his presence that made her feel at ease, and before long, they were chatting casually about the weather and the quiet town. Clint, sensing her curiosity, leaned back in his booth and smiled. "You know, Mia, life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. You can plan and plan, but sometimes things change, and you have to be ready for that change." Mia, surprised by his words, raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Clint took a slow sip of his coffee, his gaze thoughtful. "I've learned a lot in my years of acting. You can never truly control the path your life takes, but you can control how you respond to it. It's all about the choices you make in the moment. Some people get stuck in their routines, but they don't realize that life is full of opportunities to change." Mia was taken aback. She had never really thought about it that way. She had always been someone who found comfort in her predictable life. But now Clint's words seemed to resonate with her on a deeper level. Maybe she had been holding back, afraid to take risks. Maybe it was time for something new. "Thank you," Mia said quietly, unsure of what else to say. She didn't want to overthink it, but she couldn't ignore the spark Clint's words had ignited within her. The rest of the evening passed in a blur, and by the time Clint finished his pie and coffee, Mia was left with a sense of contemplation. The diner was quieter now, and she found herself lost in thought. What if Clint was right? What if it was time for her to make a change, to break free from the monotony of her life? But what kind of change? As Clint left, he turned to her once more and said, "Remember, Mia, don't wait for life to come to you. Go after it." His words echoed in her mind long after he had gone. Mia stood by the counter, staring out the window at the darkening sky. Could she really change her life? Could she take a risk and break free from the comfort of the familiar? The next morning, Mia woke up earlier than usual. There was a new energy in her that she hadn't felt in years. She brewed her coffee slowly, savoring the moment. As she sat down at her kitchen table, she thought about Clint's words. Maybe it was time to make a change, to take a chance and see where life would lead her. As the days passed, Mia couldn't shake off the feeling that something needed to change. She spent her hours at the diner, serving customers, but her mind was elsewhere. Every time she looked at Ethan, the young man who had just started working at the Silver Spoon, she found herself wondering what it would be like to live a life full of new experiences and challenges. Ethan was full of energy and enthusiasm. He was eager to learn, eager to change, and it was contagious. Ethan had been working at the diner for a little over a week, and Mia had already noticed a shift in him. He was no longer the shy, reserved young man who had walked through the door just days earlier. Now he was engaged, asking questions, helping out with the cooking, and even interacting with the regulars. Mia couldn't help but admire his willingness to embrace the unknown. It reminded her of her younger self, when she had been full of hope and excitement, ready to take on the world. One afternoon, as the diner was less busy, Mia sat down with Ethan for a chat. She noticed the way he looked at the world, with a sense of wonder and curiosity. "You've really come a long way in such a short time," Mia said with a smile. Ethan grinned. "Thanks, Mia. I really appreciate everything you've taught me. I feel like I'm finally starting to get the hang of things here." Mia nodded thoughtfully. "You know, it's not just about learning the job. It's about learning how to live in the moment. There's something special about this place. It's not just a diner. It's a place where people come to find comfort, to connect, and sometimes even to change their lives." Ethan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Change their lives? How?" Mia leaned forward, her voice quiet but firm. "Sometimes the smallest decisions can lead to the biggest changes. You just have to be willing to take the leap." Ethan looked thoughtful for a moment, then smiled. "I think I get it. It's about taking chances, right?" Mia smiled back, feeling a sense of pride in the young man before her. "Exactly. Life doesn't wait for you to catch up. You have to meet it halfway." As the conversation ended, Mia couldn't help but feel a sense of connection to Ethan. She had been where he was once, full of hope and ambition, but over time, she had let those dreams slip away, caught up in the routine of daily life. Now she was starting to realize that change wasn't just something that happened to other people, it could happen to her too. That evening, after the diner had closed, Mia sat down at the counter, feeling more reflective than usual. The diner was quiet, and the only sound was the soft hum of the refrigerator in the back. Mia's mind wandered back to Clint Eastwood and the words he had shared with her. She couldn't help but wonder if he had been sent to her for a reason. Had his visit been a sign? Could it really be time for her to take that leap? As the days turned into weeks, Mia began to change. She started taking small risks, trying new recipes, engaging more with her customers, and even considering the possibility of expanding the diner. She had once been content with what she had, but now she felt the pull of something greater. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in years, she was excited to find out. Meanwhile, Ethan continued to thrive. He became more involved in the diner, and his passion for the work rubbed off on the other employees. Mia couldn't deny that having him around had sparked something in her. He had reminded her of what it felt like to chase after something with all your heart, and that energy was exactly what she needed. One day, as they closed up the diner, Mia and Ethan stood outside together. The sky was streaked with colors of pink and orange as the sun began to set. Mia turned to Ethan, smiling. "You know, you've really taught me something these past few weeks. You've reminded me that it's never too late to change." Ethan looked at her with a grin. "I think we've both learned that lesson, Mia." As they locked up the diner for the night, Mia couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. She didn't know where this new journey would take her, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to find out. Whatever changes came her way, she knew she would face them head on, just like Clint had suggested. Life was full of surprises, and Mia was ready for whatever was next. The next few weeks brought even more changes to the Silver Spoon. Mia, feeling more alive than she had in years, began to embrace each day with a new sense of purpose. She experimented with new ideas, reaching out to local farmers for fresher ingredients, and even started hosting community events at the diner. The regulars, who had once been content with their usual cups of coffee and eggs, were now excited about the new offerings. It was as if the diner itself had been reborn, and Mia was at the helm of this transformation. One afternoon, Clint Eastwood returned to the diner. Mia was surprised to see him again, but this time he wasn't alone. He had brought a friend with him, a well-known director from Hollywood. Clint smiled as he walked in, his eyes scanning the room. "Mia, I hope you don't mind, but I thought I'd bring someone along to see this place. It's something special." Mia smiled, feeling flattered. "Of course, Clint. It's great to see you again." The director, a tall man with silver hair and a friendly smile, shook Mia's hand. "Clint's been telling me all about your diner. He says it's more than just a place to eat. It's a place where people change their lives." Mia felt her heart race. She had never expected her small diner to be the subject of such praise, especially from someone like Clint Eastwood. But she knew, deep down, that the diner had become more than just a job for her. It had become a part of her, a place where she could help people find themselves, just as she had. As they sat down to eat, Clint leaned over and gave Mia a knowing look. You did it, Mia. You took that leap. And look where it's gotten you. Mia smiled, her heart full of gratitude. Thank you, Clint. I think I'm finally starting to understand what you meant. Over the next few months, Mia's life continued to evolve. She became more confident, more open to change, and more determined than ever to make the Silver Spoon a place where people could come not just for great food, but for a sense of belonging. She had taken a risk, and it had paid off in ways she never could have imagined. And as for Clint Eastwood, he had been right all along. Life was about the choices you made, and Mia had finally made the choice to embrace change. That decision had led her to a future full of possibilities, and she couldn't wait to see where it would take her next. Months passed, and Mia's transformation was apparent to everyone who walked through the doors of the Silver Spoon. The small diner had become a hub for the community, a place where people came not just to eat, but to connect with one another. Mia's new sense of purpose was clear in every plate of food she served, every smile she shared with her customers. She had gone from being the shy, routine-driven woman who served breakfast in a quiet town to becoming an unstoppable force of positive change, bringing new life to her diner and in turn to herself. One chilly morning, as Mia prepared for the day ahead, a new face appeared. She looked up to see a tall, well-dressed man standing at the counter. He had a confident air about him, but there was something different in his eyes, something that reminded Mia of how she had felt when she first started questioning her own life. Good morning, Mia said, walking over to greet him. What can I get for you today? The man smiled warmly. I'll have the special, please, and a coffee black. I've heard this place has the best breakfast in town. Mia couldn't help but smile back. I like to think we do our best here. You're in for a treat. As she prepared his order, she couldn't help but glance at him every now and then, curious about what brought him to her diner. He wasn't a regular, and he certainly didn't look like someone who had stumbled in by accident. There was a sort of air of purpose about him, similar to the one she had felt when she made the decision to change her life all those months ago. When she finally placed his food in front of him, the man looked up with a smile. Thank you. You know, I don't usually visit diners like this, but there's something special about this place. It has a certain energy. Mia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you mean? The man took a sip of his coffee before replying. I've been traveling a lot lately, moving from place to place, trying to find something. I wasn't sure what, exactly, but when I walked in here, I felt like I had found something I didn't know I was looking for. This diner, it's not just a place to eat. There's a sense of peace here, a sense of purpose. Mia was taken aback. She had never thought of her diner that way, but now that the man had mentioned it, she could see it through his eyes. It wasn't just the food or the decor. It was the way she had poured herself into the place, the way she had transformed it and herself over the past few months. She smiled softly. I think you might be right. It's become more than just a job for me. It's a place where people can come and feel at home. The man nodded thoughtfully. I can see that, and you've created something truly special here. As the conversation continued, Mia realized something. She had spent so many years working hard for a life that felt safe, but she had never truly lived. Now she was no longer afraid to embrace the unknown. She had learned that life was full of possibilities as long as you were open to them. And this diner, this small corner of the world, was where she had found herself. It had been a place of change for her, and now it was becoming a place of change for others as well. After the man finished his meal, he stood up, leaving a generous tip on the counter. Thank you for the meal, he said. I'll be back next time I'm in town. This place is a gem. Mia waved him off, feeling a sense of pride swelling in her chest. As he left, she glanced at the empty seat where he had sat, wondering how many more people would walk into her life, seeking the same thing he had found, something special, something worth cherishing. As the months continued to pass, Mia's life became a whirlwind of exciting changes. She had expanded her diner, adding new seating, a bakery section for freshly baked goods, and even a small stage for local musicians to perform on the weekends. The once quiet diner was now a bustling hub of activity, filled with the sounds of laughter, music, and conversation. Mia had truly transformed her business, and in doing so, she had transformed herself. One evening, as the sun began to set and the last of the dinner rush started to wind down, Mia found herself standing behind the counter, lost in thought. She had accomplished so much in such a short time, but there was one question that still lingered in her mind. Was this really the life she had always wanted? She had created the diner of her dreams, but now she wondered if there was something more, something bigger. She thought back to Clint Eastwood's words, "Don't wait for life to come to you. Go after it." Those words had stuck with her, and now she found herself wondering if it was time to take the next step. But where would that step lead? What was next for her? Just as she was lost in her thoughts, the door to the diner jingled, and Mia looked up to see a familiar face, Clint Eastwood. He entered with his usual calm, confident presence, and this time he was accompanied by a few people, a couple of Hollywood producers and a well-known journalist. "Clint!" Mia exclaimed with a smile. "It's great to see you again." Clint smiled back, his eyes twinkling. "Mia, it's always a pleasure. I wanted to introduce you to a few people. They've heard a lot about you and your diner." Mia shook hands with the group, feeling both honored and slightly nervous. The producers were friendly, but the journalists seemed more interested in taking notes than having a conversation. As they sat down at the table, Clint turned to her with a serious look in his eyes. "Mia, I've been thinking about you a lot lately," he said. "I've seen what you've done with this place, and I think you've created something truly special. But now, I think it's time for you to take the next step." Mia blinked, confused. "Next step? What do you mean?" Clint leaned forward. "You've built something here, but there's a bigger world out there. Your story, your journey, it could inspire so many people. I think it's time for you to share it with the world. You've got the power to make an even bigger impact. Ever thought about writing a book or starting a podcast?" Mia felt her heart race. The thought of opening up her life for others to see, of sharing her story with the world, was both exciting and terrifying. Could she really do that? Was she ready? Clint smiled, sensing her hesitation. "You've come this far, Mia. You've proven that you're capable of more than you ever thought possible. You've already made a difference in this town. Now it's time to take that difference to the world." Mia sat back, overwhelmed by the thought. Could she really do it? Could she share her journey with others, inspire them to take risks and change their lives just as she had? As she looked around the diner, at the people who had become her extended family, she realized something. She had already changed her life. Now it was time to help others do the same. With that thought, Mia made a decision. It was time to take the leap. She would share her story. She would write that book. She would create that podcast, and she would continue to inspire others, just as Clint had inspired her. And so Mia's journey continued, not just as the owner of a small diner, but as a woman who had learned to embrace change, take risks, and live her truth. The future was uncertain, but Mia knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, she was ready.